Welcome to the Eye on Annapolis Local Business Spotlight. There are thousands of locally owned businesses in the area, some small and some large. Some you may know and others you don't. But one thing they all have in common is a great story, and we want to share it with you. Join us every Saturday as we talk to the founders, the owners, and the managers of local businesses you have come to know and love, and those you will come to know and love. Now here's your host, John Frenay, with this week's Local Business Spotlight.
Well, this morning we're sitting across the table from Bruce Morgenstern, who I've known probably for, I'm thinking 10 or 12 years. We first met when we were both on the board, I think, of the Volunteer Center, which is no longer here. And we have crossed paths. We were both graduates of leadership at Anne Arundel, and we crossed paths, I know, at the Anne Arundel County Food Bank. And we both sit on the ICST board, which is the sort of a guidance board for the signature program at Annapolis High School. And I don't know what ICST is because I'm over acronyms, but thank you very much for coming out. And today we're going to talk about a nonprofit that you started called AAA CERT, is also an acronym, but AAA is Anne Arundel Annapolis, and CERT is Community Emergency Response Team. Do I have that right?
Absolutely. And thanks very much for inviting me here, John. So AAA CERT is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we have a dual mission. Mission number one is to train the public about emergency preparedness and response. Certainly, we've over the last few years, everybody has realized the importance of knowing how to take care of themselves in an emergency situation. The second part of our mission is those who want to actually join us and want to volunteer with us. We respond to the county when they have an emergency or a disaster. We operate under the two offices of emergency management, the City of Annapolis and Anne Arundel County, and they will activate us as necessary to help support them during an event.
Okay, so I didn't realize that you not just responding. And I mean, I know that we'll throw it back to COVID days. I know when they were shutting down Main Street and the dining outside and keeping the 6 feet. I know you folks were out there trying to, when we didn't know what the heck was going on, keep people apart. Let's not have crowds. And just reminding people. But you guys are actually training the communities now? Or not now, but I mean, always.
Yeah, it isn't always. What we have is we have something called our CERT Basic class. It's a 20-hour class that we teach at the Fire Training Academy in Millersville, and it is geared towards the average community member. And the goal of the class is to make them better prepared in the event of an emergency. So the modules that are part of this are a basic idea of how to respond or how to prepare yourself for an emergency. We provide information about how organizations organize during a disaster, so that if you were called up to help support, if you wanted to volunteer support, you would know how to fit into the structure within the community during a disaster. We do about 4 hours of hands-on basic first aid. This is for the ouches and the boo-boos, as well as to help you in more dire circumstances where possibly you need to help to stop bleeding or open an airway or save somebody's life.
Okay, so this really sort of encompasses, when the S hits the fan at home, this helps you out.
Absolutely. This is everyday type of training. We go a little bit further, too. We talk about fire safety. We want you to know how to put out a small fire with a fire extinguisher, and we want you to know how to not create fires in the first place. And we do a little bit about light search and rescue and what to do in a terrorist incident. Not that we run into terrorist incidents, but we could have been there in the city of Boston during the Boston Marathon when that terrible event occurred.
I guess we can't be prepared for what we don't know, but we can try to be as prepared as possible for what we don't know.
Absolutely. And the final module is an important one. It's the psychology of a disaster. Is how do people react during the disaster? So you understand how people feel and what they're going through, but also how it affects you, because that's equally as important. We're all human beings helping other human beings. We're going to get affected by a disaster as well. And all this training occurs, like I said, at the Fire Training Academy, and we culminate with a bunch of practical exercises and a disaster simulation. And what a better place than the Fire Training Academy, which has burned out buildings and overturned cars. We get volunteers to get made up with Hollywood-type makeup, and you get to go search, rescue, provide first aid, and provide comfort to those people affected by a disaster. So you really get to understand what it is that we've actually taught you.
Well, I think it's probably pretty vital for the public to understand exactly what a first responder goes through, to understand why they do this, why they do that. And I think that's pretty vital for somebody to understand that. Because I know a lot of times you sit there and stand on the side of the road and you watch, how a police officer reacts to something or other, or how an EMT or a firefighter does that. It was like, well, why isn't he going in there to get the cat out of the building? I imagine that probably gives you the opportunity to say, well, here's why they don't do this. If you see, there may be too much flames to be able to safely go in. I mean, we've got to actually make sure that we've heard that recently with the Key Bridge collapse, that they're obviously concerned on the recovery of the victims that are there, but they've also got to be mindful of the safety of the first responders that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely, John. And in fact, throughout the training, we talk about safety, safety, safety. Anytime you want somebody to really understand something, you say it 3 times. But we do it many more times during the class, because we teach everybody that they're number one, that they have to worry about their safety first and then the safety of others. Just think about when you fly on an airplane. What do they tell you to do? They tell you to pull your mask down
first.
That's right. Then you can help somebody else. Exactly right. But I do want to mention something based on what you said, and that is that we're not first responders. We are volunteer emergency responders. We like to use the catchphrase that we are the help until help arrives. And I think that's very important. We're the Good Samaritans, except that we are trusted and we are trained. And that's perhaps an important distinction.
It really is. I mean, we are a very helpful society in general. Mm-hmm. That we do want to help those that are in need or that are in stress or in trauma of some sort. There's a wreck, in front of you. You're going to park your car, you're going to get out, and you're going to say, hey, how can I help? And, certainly a situation like this with AAA CERT. How do you refer to it? Is it AAA CERT?
Yeah, that's the easiest way. It's Anne Arundel Annapolis Community Emergency Response Team, which is a real mouthful.
Right.
So AAA CERT is a whole lot easier.
Okay, and the website is AAACERT.org. And
that's right.
I do encourage everybody to go take a look at that. But you talked about your second aspect of the organization is the response part of that. And you mentioned that you have members.
That's correct. Yeah. So we want to train people, and there's no obligation to our training. But those people who are excited by our mission and want to help their community, they can become members of AAA CERT. As members, we are volunteers, and we help support the community, as I mentioned before, in the event of some kind of disaster or emergency.
Well, let's be real, too, that the police departments and the fire departments, which is primarily your coworkers, for lack of a better word, in an incident, are strapped. They're budgetarily strapped. They're personnel strapped. They don't have it. And I used to be a volunteer firefighter way back when in a prior life, and there is so much that goes on a fire scene or a police scene that may not necessarily, rolling hoses on a fire scene. Or you've got all these other aspects of the entire organization or the entire incident that really take away from some of the core things, putting out the fire, rescuing a person in the car. And that's sort of where you come in.
I really want to say that I don't want to call police and fire our coworkers. Instead, I want to say that we are volunteers available to help support them if they need support. We are many of our members are traffic trained. However, we are restricted primarily to private property, like parks and parking lots and things like that, unless we're under the supervision of law enforcement. So, and another important distinction is we typically don't just show up. We are actually activated. Somebody has requested our support. To give you the distinction, though, if there was a traffic accident, and we thought we were able to help, that first responders were not there yet, because I emphasize we are the help until help arrives, we might stop on the scene. And in that case, we're not really AAA CERT. What we are trained people who are there to provide whatever assistance we can based on the training that we have. We are Good Samaritans at that point.
Okay, that makes sense.
A better example of what we were able to do is during COVID. We were activated by the Office of Emergency Management to do many different functions. We supported food distributions at numerous locations throughout Anne Arundel County and the City of Annapolis. And what we were able to do is we were to be able to manage the traffic in the parking lots on the adjacent streets under police supervision to make sure that the flow of traffic was even and easy and that everybody had access to the food that they needed. In addition to that, we supported a lot of the donation sites where people were donating items. We supported the vaccine clinics, again, primarily with safety for individuals because you had, particularly in the beginning, we had older individuals who needed to cross busy highways in order to get to the vaccination sites. So we provided that. We're also call takers for the Emergency Operations Center. During COVID, the health department was overwhelmed with phone calls, and we were a pre-filter for the health department, helping answer those questions that we could, and then just forwarding those questions that required a health professional to answer. So many different types of opportunities. To give you a different example, besides COVID, when there was the large power outage in the broader Annapolis area back last June, the City of Annapolis called us in. And again, with police supervision, we were out on the highways and at major intersections, helping the flow of traffic during rush hour for quite a number of hours, because it was an overwhelming situation where every single traffic light in the City of Annapolis was not working. So those are examples where we come in what I would say emergency situations. Certainly none of us expected a worldwide pandemic. We didn't train for that. In fact, we all learned, along with all the other first responders and emergency managers, on how we might react to that.
Are you training for the next one?
Or
are we just taking the lessons that we learned from this one?
Well, I'm not training for another pandemic, but we do work closely with a lot of the county agencies in their preparation type activities. So, for example, they are constantly exercising their plans to be able to respond efficiently if a situation should occur, like an active assailant, like a disease or pandemic type situation. And so we'll provide volunteers to help support them practice their mission.
Well, I imagine that their own response plans, whether it be the Annapolis Police Department, Annapolis Fire Department, Anne Arundel County Fire, or Anne Arundel County Police, do have it in there at some point. Okay, if this situation escalates to this level, or it is this type of a situation, this is our initial focus. We do need to activate AAA CERT to come in to handle this aspect of it. I mean, that's got to be part of the emergency preparedness plan that we've got through the county and the city.
Well, I'm excited to say that, yes, that's true, that we are actually written in several of the plans, as well as other volunteer organizations like American Red Cross, like the Amateur Radio Emergency Services, AARES, people are written in. And I also want to assure the public that I am really excited to be living in this county and this city because I've read all the plans, and we are well prepared. Not for everything, but we are well prepared for the vast majority of things that might happen to us.
What keeps you awake at night? You said we're prepared for the vast majority of things. What would give you pause as? And obviously, you're not a professional first responder, but you've had access to some of the things. But what might make AAA CERT go, oh my God, like the pandemic did, or even the fire department? I mean, I know we talked about hurricanes coming up the bays, and we've actually witnessed tornadoes cutting across West Street. You've had the pandemic, and what else is there?
Well, the answer is I don't know. That's what keeps me up at night. But the fact is, what I would worry about the most is either a large enough incident or multiple incidents happening at the same time, which really stresses resources and makes it difficult for everybody to respond. That's what we worry about.
It would pull everybody any number of different ways. It's, do we go to Annapolis? No, we go over to the mall. No, we go to, it's where do we do and where do we put the resources? Because, again, we are limited, and, we're thankful that we do have organizations such as AAA CERT that are able to step in and handle some of the lift.
Well, and in addition, John, the discussions we've had with the Office of Emergency Management is if they had unaffiliated volunteers, people who just wanted to help, could we absorb them temporarily, provide them just-in-time training and could we use them for a larger type of response? And the answer is certainly we're having discussions with them to see how that would be feasible. I mean, the whole concept of CERT came out of that. CERT came out of the 1980s after a very large earthquake in Mexico City, where thousands of people died and hundreds of volunteers came in to try and help those people who were hurt. The unfortunate thing in that incident is many of the volunteers died from lack of training. As a result of that, in the United States, particularly in the city of Los Angeles, they looked at that model, said it's a bad one, and that they needed to train citizens for a response. And Los Angeles has a few problems with earthquakes and wildfires and things like that.
Well, is CERT a national organization? I mean, you are AAA CERT.
Okay, it's a national concept.
Okay.
All right. There are CERTs in many counties and cities across the United States and in some of the territories. But it's all run under an umbrella program through FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency. So they provide the basic structure and the guidelines for how we train and how we respond. But other than that, it's all local. Emergency managers will tell you that all disasters are local. And that's absolutely true.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, when you look at Annapolis and Anne Arundel County, I mean, we're so unique. We've got our own set of circumstances, I guess, that we need to deal with the coastline that we have, with our location close to Washington, D.C. and everything else. Somebody in Montana does not have that, but they've got a whole different set. They've got wildfires and tornadoes, whatever else happens out in Montana.
Yeah, exactly. And so we train for those things that happen here. What we worry about the most in Anne Arundel County are floods. Even if there's a hurricane, we worry about floods. That's something that we're very concerned. And, you made up a good point. We do have some uniqueness in that we have a huge number of peninsulas. We're talking about areas that could easily be isolated with a single road cutoff. And when you've got communities that are isolated, local response, local capability, local knowledge is going to be critical, perhaps, to getting people immediate support following some kind of disaster situation.
When you do a CERT training with you, and you talked about you're up at the fire academy,
mm-hmm.
is there a certification?
Absolutely.
That goes with that at the end? And do I have a card that I carry?
Well, I will tell you, we give what we call a completion certificate for somebody who successfully goes through the entire course. And it is a nationally recognized certificate, so that if you went and moved to another area, then the CERT in that area would likely accept that. They might want you to have additional training, for example.
In the local area.
If you went to Los Angeles, they'd probably want a little bit more instruction on, we've had an earthquake, but they have a lot more, and theirs are more severe, but also the wildfires. So there are, and if you go to Hawaii, they're going to be focused even on volcanoes. So there's localized training, but it is a nationally recognized certificate. And I did want to mention, we do have a class that's coming up. It is we do it on a Friday evening, an all-day Saturday, and an all-day Sunday, and then half a Sunday 1 week later, and the afternoon of May 5th. So we still have space in that class, and we would love for your listeners to sign up for it.
What am I coming out of when I go through that class? Okay, I know how to put a stove fire out with a fire extinguisher. Do I know how to do a Heimlich?
We don't go into Heimlich in it. And by the way, you can't call it Heimlich anymore.
No, why?
As if, there was a copyright issue or trademark issue, I believe. The family didn't want the name used anymore. Oh, wow. But it's still the same procedure.
Okay.
No, we don't do that. Actually, we do offer some additional training to the public that is outside of our CERT Basic, that is certificated CPR, AED, first aid, stop the bleed, and Narcan training. And we would be happy to do that for any type of group. It could be a church group or a community group or something like that. But we're happy to set it up. We are certified by the Health Safety Institute. That's an equivalent to the American Heart Association. And you get a 2-year certificate.
I can't emphasize the need for more people to get trained in CPR and almost even life-saving. You can take a life-saving class. I mean, there are two critical skills that you can have.
And I will tell you, John, when I took my CPR training, I never, ever expected to have to use it. And I was at a facility, I was volunteering there, and one of the other volunteers collapsed. I was there with another CERT member. We were able to go over to that individual, assess the situation, make sure we were safe, by the way, before we started, and then start providing CPR until EMS arrived.
And that was probably done before there was a dispatch, likely, where you're able to, I mean, you saved that person.
We were the help before help arrived. Absolutely.
And I mean, it's critical because you never know. And I know that there is an app that you mentioned, the AED, which is the automatic external automatic external defibrillator.
Yes. Good job.
The shocking thing on your heart.
The shock.
And those are located all over the place. Different public buildings have them, private buildings have them, and everything else. And there is an app out there that will tell you that if you register and if you are where somebody is maybe suffering a heart attack that you can get to. Okay, so we're here in Panera Bread this morning, and there could be somebody over there at Giant right now that may have a heart attack. We could get over there much quicker than the fire department can initially, and that's so critical. And that, for a heart attack, the initial seconds to be able to do is critical.
And that's absolutely true. And sort of a segue to that is because you asked what are some of the other things we do. We do stuff during blue skies as well, meaning when there are no disasters and no problems. We're the parade marshals for the City of Annapolis.
You're the guys in the yellow and green vests.
We are the guys in the yellow green vests. We help at the Odenton Carnival that they have, that the fire department does as a fundraiser. We provide typically traffic support for something like that. We do a lot of, we help the SPCA with a number of their events. But the fact is that things happen. We support the Striders, the running group in Anne Arundel County. We support them with first aid tents. And let me tell you something, runners get hurt during every race, whether it's a sprain or a strain or could be in the summer, it could be heat exhaustion or something there. We're there first to be able to help them until local responders are able to get there. Even though we're, again, very fortunate, EMS, they have a great track record of getting to people very, very quickly.
Very quickly.
We are still there on the scene typically before they arrive.
Well, and a lot of times what the services that you offer and the help that you offer, maybe just all it needs. I mean, if somebody is having heat exhaustion, maybe they just need to cool down a little bit.
Exactly.
And sit down for 15 minutes and, by the time the ambulance were to arrive, I'm feeling better. Okay, fine. They check the vitals and say, okay, yeah, fine, the temperature. And okay, chill out for the rest of the day. And again, that was a service that you provided to the runner that, maybe got a little bit overheated. You talked about being activated. How physically do you get activated? Is that a phone call that you get at night, or is that?
Well, so I have an operations person, and that operations person gets either a phone call or a text from the Office of Emergency Management with the information of what is needed, how many people, what skill sets, where they're going to go, what activities they're going to do. And then that person sends a text to all of our members that are trained in that matter and looks for who can possibly respond.
Okay, and then you internally somewhat dispatch them, say, hey, let's go up to Odenton or Crofton or whatever, and this is where you're going.
No, actually, it's very well controlled. We'll provide the information back to the Office of Emergency Management, and then they'll provide us instructions on what we need to do and when we need to.
Okay, so they say, hey, we need some help. You say, hey, this is what we have.
This is a very controlled situation.
Great. We've got 15 people from CERT. We'll have them meet here and here and here and report to some deputy chief or something along those lines.
Exactly right. And that's important distinction is we will report to a first responder that is on the scene. The only time we don't is when we're sent someplace where there are no first responders yet on the scene.
How many members do you have?
We have 60 right now. And of course, we would love to grow even more. But our focus really is on training individuals and then getting those excited individuals who want to volunteer in support of the county or the city after that.
And as far as signing up to be a member or signing up for the classes, AAACERT.org is the way to go?
Absolutely. We do need you to take our CERT training prior to becoming a member. You do need to get a background check because we are often working with vulnerable populations, and we want everybody. That's the trusted part of who we are as volunteers. And we have some small fees, but because we are a nonprofit and need to function. We don't have any paid members, but nonetheless, a nonprofit is a business, and it's got business expenses, and so we have to do that.
You established this nonprofit here in Anne Arundel County personally.
Well, no, it existed before me. So quick story, because this is interesting, because you mentioned the Volunteer Center. When I was with the Volunteer Center had a function during a disaster, which was to set up a volunteer mobilization center, which is a place where volunteers would go that were not affiliated with any nonprofit if they wanted to support a disaster. And my executive director at the time, Faye Morrow, said, "Why don't you take this CERT class?" And so I took it, the same one that I'm asking other community members to take. And I said, oh my God, this is like a calling. This is something that I really want to do. I want to help people, and I want to be better prepared. And so I joined AAA CERT. I've been with them since 2015. I'm now the president of the organization. And it's just been, I am retired, and it's just a great retirement activity for me. But we have people, my youngest is about 20 years old, and my oldest is 81. So we span the full range of ages, capabilities, and backgrounds. We have people who are medical professionals or were medical professionals. We have people who were in law enforcement, but we also have the average person off the street that just wants to do stuff and help people.
Just wants to help people.
Yep.
It's amazing that we have people like that are willing to do it, and people like you that are like have their aha moment post-retirement. I mean, you could be, you are a retired engineer from Aare.
That's correct, yes.
And you're now embarking on a second career as a professional volunteer, which AAA CERT is one of.
Pretty much. I like to tell people, John, that I work full-time. I just don't get paid. But
worst job ever.
No, I'm going to tell you it's the best job ever, because the appreciation I get from people who we help is worth everything to me. So it's a great retirement life.
Well, from a personal perspective, and from what I know about you and what I've run through you, I mean, you have your fingers in a number of different pots. I mean, you won an award last year from the Anne Arundel County Food Bank. You are actively involved there. You were on the board there somewhere. Maybe it's
not on the board, no.
No, but actively involved there.
But let me tell you, during COVID, I was a warehouse worker there.
Yep.
Because temporarily they lost all their warehouse people due to the pandemic, and a bunch of my members were warehouse workers, because guess what? Their function is absolutely critical, and we had to make sure that food got out to people that didn't have food.
You are on any number of the ICST boards throughout the county.
Okay, so integrated community stakeholder teams, for everybody who don't like acronyms. That's really a business partnership with the various schools. And it's great to work with young people and to give them the kind of soft skills that are not necessarily being taught in our high school environments.
I don't know that they were ever taught in our high school environments. I mean, it's a learned skill,
certainly,
that is hugely needed in today's environment there. I mean, how did you jump into the volunteering thing? I mean, did not like a beach in the South Pacific cross your mind when you initially retired?
Well, it's funny you mentioned it, because you said earlier on that we were both graduates of Leadership Anne Arundel. Mm-hmm. I took the Leadership Anne Arundel flagship, or I was part of the flagship class of 2012, and it absolutely inspired me. We had an opportunity in Leadership Anne Arundel to really take a look at the entire county and what the needs are within the county. It's just amazing, having lived here as long as I have, to not really understand what our communities look like and what our community needs are. And based on that, the following year, I decided I wanted to retire, and that's how I wanted to dedicate the rest of my time, was to try and help people.
Well, I'm glad that you did.
Well, thank you.
And I will echo your assessment of Leadership Anne Arundel. And I think that going through my flagship program, I probably knew a lot more about the county and the state and some of the segments that they cover than many in my class. But boy, it was an eye-opener. and to be able to see, as you said, the need in the county. Mm-hmm. And for me, more so, it's not necessarily just the need that we have here on the county, is that what we do provide and where the shortcomings are. Mm-hmm. You looked at, we keep bringing up the food bank. I mean, the need is not really subsided now that COVID is quote unquote gone.
No, inflation replaced the pandemic. Prices are so high in the food stores. And it's not just that, but we need to get quality food to people who are having challenges buying food. And that's a real focus of the Anne Arundel County Food Bank, is to make sure that there are fresh produce and meats and those types of things available to people.
And for those, now we're getting a little bit off track of AAA CERT, but I think this is a good conversation to have, though. And for those that are unaware, that the food bank does purchase an awful lot of food.
Correct.
You can't take a head of lettuce and drop it in a donation box and expect it to get to somebody's table. And the other great thing that I think Leah Paley has done, under her direction, is they're recognizing that we are a very diverse community in Anne Arundel County. And we are seeing the Hispanic population grow, the Asian population is growing, and we're really becoming that melting pot that we all learned about when we were, ankle biters. And they're now getting, some ethnic foods. I mean, let's face it. If I have come here from, El Salvador or Guatemala, and I've got my diet and what I like to eat and my favorite foods, stuff like that, Kraft macaroni and cheese is not going to cut it. Okay, it's going to keep you from dying and starving to death, but it's really not going to cut it. So they're able to get food for specific people. I know that one of our goals was to have almost a shopping type of an environment where a family could come up and say, hey, let's take this, and I can make this, which I think is just fantastic that we're actually answering the need of the members of our community, which are our neighbors, which are our friends, and we're all in this together.
Yeah. So let me key in on that, and because that's really an important point. Bringing it back to AAA CERT is here's an example. We support the Anne Arundel County Food Bank anytime they have any kind of needs, and that is nonprofits helping nonprofits, both with an emergency response mission. Don't kid yourself. The food bank has an emergency response mission. Their goal is to make sure people can eat. If kids don't have food, they can't learn. If families don't have food, they may be swapping other expenses or not eating enough. So we are there to support them, as well as other nonprofits that are in the area. Another great thing about Anne Arundel County and the City of Annapolis is how it brings nonprofits together in a network of help to help support those people who need things. So we're proud to be part of that as well.
How do you get your money?
So
you got your pension from retirement, but if you got
my personal money, no, we're not going to talk about my personal money. How does AAA CERT? Well, I will tell you that we're mostly grant funded. We do have some donations. I'm not appealing for donations right now, although people are welcome to give me some. But we will, particularly for equipment, we go out to the county. They have their community grants. We've been very fortunate to get some very sizable grants from them so that we could purchase radios, so that we can communicate throughout Anne Arundel County and be of greater assistance. We can talk directly to the Office of Emergency Management or any agency that's controlling us. They also recently approved us purchasing a fire extinguisher training simulator, which is a digital simulator that we can take inside buildings, such as religious buildings, community buildings, schools, etc., and provide fire safety education. So that's something that we're doing. We do this obviously free of charge, and it's a 45-minute presentation followed by the ability of those people attending to try and put out a small fire that's simulated using this very sophisticated digital simulator.
That's cool.
It's very cool.
Do you have it already?
Yes, absolutely. We've done about 15 presentations. We've done most of the senior centers. We've done several schools. I was just at Kingdom Care yesterday educating some community members about fire safety. So it's been well used, and all of this is extremely well coordinated with the Anne Arundel County Fire Department. They've approved our presentation and the use of this equipment, and in fact, help us by storing it for us. So again, another great cooperation between nonprofits and government for the better good of the community.
Do you guys have a headquarters or an office?
No, we're all virtual. We're not going to count my basement.
We all learned how to do that.
Yes, yeah. No, we're a virtual organization.
What do you need? I know you said you're not appealing for money, but you'll take it and you won't take it back. So, I mean, you can do that at aacert.org as well. But what do you need? Do you need people to come and join you?
I need people to be better educated for themselves, for their families, and for the community. Just a quickie for you. We've got about 600,000 people in Anne Arundel County. If you count every police officer that's there, it's a little less than 800 for 600,000 people. And that doesn't tell you how many are on patrol at any particular time. It's obviously a number much smaller than that. They do a phenomenal job, but in a large-scale situation, they are potentially going to be overwhelmed and will need additional help. Same thing's true with fire. Even when you count in both the professional firefighters as well as the volunteer firefighters, it's still a relatively small number in an emergency situation. So the more people that can be educated, that can take care of themselves and their family and their neighbors, to take the burden off of our first responders so that they can handle more critical type activities, the better it's going to be for our community.
Saves lives.
Saves lives. Absolutely.
Saves lives. All of that information, AAACERT.org, AAA CERT, and that's AAACERT.org. Again, you can find information on how to donate, how to sign up for one of these great training classes. And you said they're offered several times a year up at the Fire Training Academy up in Millersville. And get involved. This may be something we do need. Mr. Rogers said, look for the helpers, and you guys are the helpers. And in any situation, I mean, that's where you want to go, and we need people to do that. And I certainly thank you for having the foresight to take the reins and lead the organization and grow it as you have. And again, everybody check that out, AAACERT.org.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thanks for listening to this week's Local Business Spotlight. Please make sure to visit eyeonannapolis.net for all your local news, events, and opinion. And in case you haven't already, please subscribe to the Eye on Annapolis Daily News Brief, where we bring you all the day's local news direct to your phone, tablet, or computer in about 10 minutes. It comes to you at 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.